I think both of us were close to being caught dancing there.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new week of Two Crazy Chaps and many much more crazy cultures. No, it's called Two Chaps, Many Cultures. This fellow over there who almost danced on camera is Brett Parry from Sydney.
How are you, mate? How was your weekend?
I'm doing splendid. How about yourself?
Oh, fantastic. How was your weekend?
I can't share this publicly. It was very good.
Okay. Well, yeah. Special friends. Get it?
Yeah, only my friends are all special. No, it was really, really nice. Actually, see, this is a cultural thing, so I'm going to mention it. Yes, it involves adult beverages. I had a conversation again with our dear friend and colleague, Salvador in Mexico.
Yes,
who is recovering from a health scare very well, and we had a talk about mezcal because for years he's been telling me, yeah, tequila is for the rest of the world. Mexico drinks mezcal, and you need to be initiated. So I finally got myself a bottle of mezcal, sent him a picture, and asked him, "Is this okay?" And he coached me through it. I said, "Yeah, okay, this is good, and yet there's a few other things you want to pay attention to." So I had this hour-long WhatsApp conversation with Mexico about what's the right way to drink mezcal and which one to buy. So, por todo el mal, mezcal, y por todo bien, también. There you go.
Bien. Yeah, hey, so coached you through it. I mean, you can be coached for everything. Is this not a beautiful segue into this week's topic? Well, yeah, I almost said topic du jour for a week. Now, so it is.
Le topic de semaine.
Okay. Très bien. So let's talk about coaching. And here we are going to spend this week just on a couple of different topics. And of course, coaching is many things. It can be many things. It should be many things. It should be varied, and it should suit the people. What's your view on coaching in general, kind sir?
Well, now that my wife is saying good morning here, my
you're flustered.
Yeah, sure. She's watching what I'm doing. So my views on coaching changed over the years because I was very fuzzy in the beginning what it actually meant. To me, coaching in the beginning was the terminology reminded me of sports, right? There is somebody to tell you how to run faster or catch the ball or play the ball or whatever. And in my head, I had this stereotype of, oh, there's somebody in athletic gear and we're sweating while I'm being coached. And over the years, I realized, yeah, it's not quite that, and yet it is completely that. So my views on coaching is having an accountability partner who is performing at my pace initially, however I crawl, run, walk, or whatever my performance level at the starting point is. The coach is right next to me and then paces me, and then at some point nudges me to take the extra step or do something different and see how that works out. So we have a term in neurolinguistic programming. It's pace, lead. So the coach, you go alongside your coachee and match their pace, match their rhythm, match their status quo to build rapport, to build commonality, to build trust. And at some point there is this, okay, let's try this now. And let's see how that works. And so in a way, the athletic story held true, but I was able to translate that, or translate my perception into how that would work in a non-athletic environment like corporate or any form of behavioral improvement.
Perfect.
What about you?
Well, I think it's the same. We need people to aspire to follow, maybe not to follow, be mentored by, and we just happen to have somebody in the background here who we will never catch up with. She will always be in front of us. This is the kind of person we want out in front of us to lead us away. And so, as a bit of a surprise, ladies and gentlemen, Tamara Thorpe, the millennials mentor.
Welcome, Tamara.
We need crowd noise. We need crowd noise.
Morning, two chaps.
How are you, Tamara? All the way from beautiful 𝙏𝙬𝙤 Ireland today, and where it is an afternoon of, let's say, sunshine. Is it today?
It's an afternoon of intermittent sunshine as usual. It's really warm, but we've got a little bit of rain with a little bit of sun partaking every once in a while, just to tease us a little bit.
All right.
So I want to tease our audience too, because our audience heard you're from Dublin, Ireland, and they probably think she doesn't sound like she's from Dublin, Ireland. So for those of our audience who have no idea who you are, Tamara, how come that a lady who does not sound Irish is from Dublin?
So I'm currently living in Dublin, Ireland. I'm from the U.S., born and raised in Los Angeles, most recently from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I am here as a accompanying spouse, I guess you would call it these days. My husband is working here in Ireland, so we've been here for just over 3 years now.
Okay. How are you liking it?
I love it. I mean, it's been a wonderful place to live. It's been a great place to be in lockdown for the last however many months now, 4 or 5 months. It's just a beautiful country. The people have been fantastic, incredibly welcoming. And we've been able to travel around the country since we've been here and learn about the culture and the history and the people. And it's just been a phenomenal experience.
Lovely. So you're a mentor. You're a mentor for millennials. Is that right?
I think we're all mentors. I think most of the time we're mentors and we don't even realize that we're mentoring. Mentoring has been a huge part of my life, having had so many incredible mentors that have guided me through, my life, my adolescence, my teen years, and my professional career. And in my work as a leadership coach and trainer, I do that all under the umbrella of the Millennials Mentor. I've shared, I think one of the reasons why I'm here today is because I think every leader needs to be a great mentor. And so for me, those really go together. And I think that mentoring really is about holding that space for other people to grow and learn, right?
As one of my teachers and mentors once told me when I was a bit younger, he basically gave me the 3 steps. He said, you learn it, you do it, and you teach it. And if you only do it and continue doing it without teaching it, you're doing the world a disservice. So at some point, you got to teach it, you got to pass it on. So thanks for doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are doing it with your, the 2 chaps and your conversations. In that, people are learning and growing from the conversations that you have. So that's what I mean. And lots of times when we don't know we're mentoring, which I think is when we talk about how do coaching and mentoring differ. Very often when we're coaching or being coached, we're really aware that that's happening, right? Because coaching usually has a bit more structure. It has some really performative goals attached to it. Whereas mentoring, because it can happen formally or informally, it can happen serendipitously or intentionally, and it looks so many different ways, but it is about sort of helping people develop, whether it's in their career or their personal life. And so, somebody asked me recently, what makes a great mentor? And I was, somebody with an open mind and a willingness to share, right? Which is really different than what makes a great coach.
That's a good distinction, because I often find those terms used interchangeably, and they're not. And just because you're mentoring somebody doesn't necessarily mean you're good at coaching. Because you're a good coach and an accountability partner for someone doesn't mean that you have the knowledge, wisdom, personal experience to help your coachee develop additional skills in that area. So for instance, I could coach somebody. I actually coach somebody right now who is a chemical engineer who runs a lab, right? So I can coach him on his behavioral quirks because he wants to get better in communicating with his multicultural team. I could never mentor him in becoming a better lab leader. I could never mentor him in his subject matter expertise. That's not my field, right?
Yeah.
So those two things are not the same.
Yeah. I've got a question kind of related, but I hope it doesn't go off I'm taking us too much of a track, but I think the coaching part is a little bit separate. There's, as you say, the performative parts and the different steps in it. The mentoring can be kind of following a model behavior, following, I mean, at least for the mentors I've had. What happens, Tamara, if somebody really, you develop a relationship in a mentoring sense, and the person who is being mentored sees a behavior that doesn't fit their particular set of values or beliefs that is displayed by their mentor? And this is something, because I've had this happen in my life where I've had a wonderful mentor, they've taught me a lot, and then we've become, because the mentor relationship can be a little bit more personal. So then what happens if that person does something and you go, okay, then that's something I don't believe in, and now do I question my whole world's view because of that? I'm interested in your answer to that because it's something I've always struggled with.
Yeah, I think it really has to do with our perceptions of mentoring. So that historically, when we think back of like a traditional mentoring relationship, there was this sort of ideal mentor that they were sort of older, wiser, and filled with more information, and the mentee or protege was kind of this empty vessel that was receiving information. But that's a really old model. Today, we really look at mentoring as something that's much more mutual and reciprocal, and that in a mentoring relationship, there should be a greater sense of equity, that both people are coming in as whole people with different things to share, and that there should be reciprocal learning. And so if you have a mentor who doesn't share values, or you see a behavior you have questions about, I think part of what should be in the heart of that relationship is the ability to give feedback and maybe mentor them around an area where you have a strength, right? That's what, we've been calling these days in mentoring relationships, these high quality connections, where there's a strong sense of connection and trust and bonding, so that you can go to somebody who you have a lot of respect and maybe hold in high regard and say, here's where I have some questions, and how can we both learn and grow from these questions?
Yeah.
When you said that, Brett, I was reminded of something that my wife, that is not only watching, she's literally watching over me, man. So my wife tends to say, eat the chicken, spit out the bones. So you can take the good parts of a teacher, of a mentor, even though you may not align with all their values or their worldviews. And as you grow, you learn how to distinguish between what aligns with you and what doesn't. And yet I've had mentors, I've had teachers in the past who I don't look back on today in a favorable light, yet I do remember some of the lessons that I learned from them, and I still follow the learnings I had from those lessons. So I think it's possible to separate the two.
Yeah. And I think that your point, Tamara, is great, because, I've learned a lot from you in terms of how, generationally, we talk about cultures here across countries and functions and things, but generationally, how important that is across the world, and the way that different generations, are motivated and led. And you're doing a great job of kind of exposing how us as, in a different generation might be able to build our skills in relating to that generation. And again, be humble enough to say, we're not doing it because we know everything, you must lead us. Yeah. We're doing it because we've got wonderful people like you that are teaching us. And this is the core. If anybody's listening to this is the core. My big awakening has been in doing this, is to be able to go and learn from people, whatever generation they come from, and learn what they want to hear, how they want to hear it, how they want that information delivered in a constructive way, because I've learned a lot about myself through that lens as well. So thank you for that, Tamara. That's been special for me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, when I talk about mentoring, I often talk about how my mom was one of my greatest mentors. And most recently, my mom has been giving me a ton of feedback about how I have been mentoring her, right? So I'm mixed race. My mom is white, my father is black. You know, I grew up, you know, having these visions of my mom as this like radical revolutionary, as this young white girl who married a black man in the 60s, and she must have been out of her mind. But as you know, I've aged, she's aged, and the world's changed. There's some things I got to call my mom in on, right? That as a white woman, she's got some blind spots around race. And so the last few years, we've started having really challenging conversations, but important conversations, to really allow her to start to see the world from a different lens, and to sort of acknowledge her whiteness and her privilege and how that plays out. And, you know, just recently she was like, I am learning so much from you, and you're just such a great mentor to me. And that's really how that relationship, that generational difference, and that changes, because you know, she's older and wiser, but I'm wiser in different ways, and she's wiser in different ways. And so that commitment to our mutual growth is what's at the core of it, right?
Well, that must be doing wonders for your relationship, I think, and you're open about this too. I mean, the other thing is Tamara has, you know, a business with her mum on the side, and I've witnessed some of these conversations that are just out there. You know, this is a generosity of someone like Tamara to put this out in the world like that. That's for sure.
And I think that's an interesting point you bring up there, Tamara, because if we're dealing with a special blind spot, and you brought up the topic of race or ethnic inequality, especially in North America, the blind spots are not necessarily generational, right? So I can, and matter of fact, the people of color that I learned from are, most of them are younger than I am. Sure, I've talked to older Black people who gave me their points of view, but they grew up in a different time. They may have grown up, or their political socialization may have happened during the Civil Rights Movement. And when I talk to a Black millennial, they take a completely different point of view, right? So being able to allow experience to be brought your way from multiple angles is relevant, right? So how have you, in your practice, been able to create the receptiveness in your mentees or your proteges? Because you can be willing to mentor all day long if your protege, if your mentee is not willing to accept the new knowledge, or if they're not open to receiving. How do you break that mold, so to say?
You know, I think mentoring is a really selfless thing, right? And I think that's what differentiates mentoring from coaching. You know, coaching, you kind of have some clear goals that you start with, and your role as the coach is to get them to accomplish those. With the mentee, you give the gift and they take it or they don't take it, right? And I think that is, you know, the part about mentoring that I enjoy, because you can kind of impart information without a lot of what's the word? You know, when you coach, you're really careful about what you say, what you ask, and how you guide people through a process. When I mentor, I can be a bit more direct and a bit more straightforward, and people either receive it and apply it, or they don't. As the mentor, I offer it up, and they can take the gift or not, and vice versa, right?
So does that mean you're emotionally uninvolved then, or that you're unattached to whether they take the gift or not?
That's a good question. I would say that I think in a mentoring relationship, depending upon, right? I mean, like I said, you know, between my mom and I'm super attached to the outcome, right? Because she's my mom, and how we talk about these things, and how she talks about people of color and talks about issues of race, particularly with me, is really important and has an emotional impact. When I'm mentoring with people that I don't have such a strong interpersonal relationship with, I am less attached to the outcome because, you know, it's up for them to use or not, and it's not going to have as much impact on me. That's why I think mentoring is such an interesting paradigm, because we have so many different types of mentoring relationships that somewhere have a much more emotions invested, right? It's like giving advice to one of your daughter's friends versus giving advice to your daughter, right?
True.
That's a good point.
You're much more attached to your daughter taking your advice than her friend taking your advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But the only caveat is if the friend is involved with my daughter, then I have a vested interest that they take my advice.
That's good.
Yeah.
Which my oldest daughter is at, well, both my daughters are at that age now where I have to include that in the approach. All right. Too much information. All right.
Yeah. That's a whole different show. We're parenting. We might have to do a whole week.
It's a whole different show. But I know with my daughter, you know, I could give her advice and you know, coach her through something, mentor her through something, and when she didn't take it, it would crush me. And when her friends would talk to me and I'd, you know, kind of give them feedback or mentor them around something, I was, you know, once I gave the information, it was like, you know, whatever happens in their life happens in their life. So it's a you know, it's a different kind of relationship. But I think that when you're in a mutual mentoring relationship, you are more attached to the outcome.
Right.
Absolutely. Well,
all right.
You used the term gift before, Tamara. We want to thank you. You are a gift to us. You're a gift to the work we do. You're a gift to the world of intercultural. And so with that segue and just with the wonderful appreciation of everybody that knows you, and for people who don't, you should. We're going to sign off here. Just you can find Tamara at tamarathorpe.com. That makes it really easy. I mean, you know, there's wonderful websites where you've got your name on it, right? And you'll find all the resources that she offers up in her mentoring work. Thank you again, Tamara, and thank you again to my wonderful co-conspirator, Mr. Christian Höferle. And we will see you.
Stay safe in Dublin.
Stay safe in Dublin. Absolutely. Yeah. All right, guys.
Will do. Y'all stay there.
Yeah, I see the little wink. Yeah, well, we'll get by. Thanks very much, mate. See you later.
Bye now.
Good luck. Bye, two chaps.